So bringing attention to the present, just be aware of the posture, the sitting, the 4 postures that we use: sitting, standing, walking, lying down, the movement of the body, the breath, sound of silence. I use these as these are my reference points. So these are happening right now. They're not something that, I'm trying to do something now to get something, to attain something in the future, but just being the witness, the Buddho, the knowing of the body is like this. So when I reflect in this way, I'm just paying attention to the experience of sitting, the physical act of sitting. So that centers me in the present, because I'm actually just bringing attention, awareness to something, the way it is, as I experience this body sitting at this moment. And then the breathing is happening right now. The sound of silence now. So this is we call Paccuppanna Dhamma, Santitiko, Akaliko, Ehipasko, Panayiko, Bhajatang, Vaitidapo Vinili, which we chant every morning. Santitiko Dhamma, apparent here and now. So this is an abstraction, it's not a kind of conceptualized idea of Dhamma as something. Because when we use words, then we cling to a concept, and oftentimes can't see beyond what we're creating. We're thinking a word. We think we understand what it means. But actually it's an abstraction, an idea. So apparent here now, attention, the way it is now, and it's not to define now as this, like this or like that, good, bad, right, wrong, but it is the way it is. Learning to trust this in yourself, just this reflectiveness. And also it brings up the desire to name it, to define it, to analyze it, to project onto it something, a concept of some that would make us feel we know what it is. But this isn't like knowing about, it's a direct knowing, which we're not used to it's never emphasized, never regarded very highly in our cultural conditioning. We might know a lot about all kinds of things. We might know a lot about Buddhism. And that's knowing about through concepts, through doctrine, scripture, ideas of others. But apparent here now, the Santitiko Dhamma, then it's just this, not, it needn't be defined, just awaken to, recognize that this is the way it is. So in the body itself, is this is what we're experiencing. We're experiencing the body as it's sitting is like this. Apply this to the other three, this standing, walking, lying down. So this implies the bringing attention just to the movements of the body. And these four postures are kind of focal points for developing that awareness just around the movement that we do throughout the day and night. If we have ideas about good posture and how we should sit and that, then we form views about, we can have strong views about how developing full lotus posture and should be this way, should be like that. And this is not what I'm asking you to do, is trying to have some ideal posture that you're trying to attain, but just trust yourself in what you're doing right now, even if your posture is terrible. That's not the point. Bring attention to the reality of this experience. It's like this. If you're sitting on the floor in a chair, whatever, is not, is no obstruction to awareness. Of course, encourage good posture and sitting in half lotus, or like these are part of a tradition. But in terms of reflection, this is, I'm not interested in that aspect right now. That's more on the conventional level of form. But in the reality of this moment, that you're bringing attention to this. It's like this. Sitting is like this. It's experience, isn't it? You're paying attention to that which is happening now. The breathing is like this. With the breath, you can be aware of, the body's breathing. So you begin to notice say at the nostrils or tip of the nose or the abdomen or the chest, just being aware of this body, the full breath body, or the point at the nostril, or the rise and fall of the abdomen. They're not quibbling about which point is most obvious for you. We just to bring to be in the present with that which is happening now, such as sitting, breathing. Sound of silence, the ringing, resonating, primal vibration. So this sense of listening, this attention, and so I've developed this aspect of listening. And using this concept of listening, this brings me into the state of just open attentiveness. I can hear the wind blowing outside. And then listening also works well, listening inwardly, to your own thoughts or feelings in the present. So when they direct the attention just to the sound of the wind, or external sound of silence, and awareness of internal chatter. Doubting or questioning or whatever that one might be going on right now. So then the attitude of relaxed attention. Attention is also a good word for sati, paying attention. So, santitiko, akaliko, timeless, akalika dhamma. This is getting beyond the habits of conceiving time. Ehiprasika dhamma, like ehi is this kind of come and see dhamma. See it, notice it, wake up and pay attention. So this when we reflect santitiko, akaliko, ehiprasiko, these are Pali words, but they're all about the present moment. Upanayika dhamma, leading onwards or inwards or whatever, this sense of sustaining this attention, bringing resting in this attentiveness, this mindfulness. Bhajyatang vaitida pavanui, to be experienced individually by the wise. So this wisdom is this is a natural wisdom. This is not kind of personal attained wisdom. And then whether you think yourself as wise or not, if you see yourself as wise or unwise or whatever, this is the personality again. But wisdom is our nature, so it's not like a personal trait. So don't, whatever your self-view might be, don't believe it. Trust in this awareness, rather than in any view you have about how wise you are or are not. And when you listen inwardly to the inner voices, this doesn't mean one's schizophrenic, but it's like what we hear from within, the kind of urgings and obsessions that arise in consciousness, or just the inner chatter, chit-chat that goes on, the grumbling, complaining, opinions, loves, hates, and all that. When listening to this rather than judging it, like we can. Many people say, "I've just got a lot of rubbish in my mind," just sit down and all this rubbish comes up. There's a lot of stupid stuff. But this is a judgment, isn't it? You're judging it. You're putting value judgment on the conditions of the present. And if the thinking is foolish or silly or whatever, these are value judgments, isn't it? If they foolish, silly, stupid, rubbish, this is we're creating this judging. We're judging it in some way. Now notice that this awareness isn't judgmental. Whether it's intelligent or stupid or rubbish or of great value, our relationship to it is receiving it, listening, being a receptive listener, and recognizing it is the way it is, whether, the quality is not what we're interested in anymore. The quality of the thoughts that you might be having is not the issue, but it's recognizing that like this, it is the way it is. So this way, you're embracing these habit patterns, allowing them to be what they are. That your tendency to make judgments and try to get rid of foolish, silly thoughts, or the struggle that we have as personalities with the way our minds operate. There's an endless kind of struggle, isn't it? On the level of me trying to have only useful, creative, intelligent, meaningful, wholesome thoughts is an ideal. That's what one would like. And if one longs for that kind of experience, then when all the kind of silly, foolish, nonsense, vain, selfish thoughts arise, and we try to resist or get rid of that, or feel self-aversion. We don't like ourselves because of that. So that becomes very complicated, isn't it? That's a complication we create. So in Santitiko Dhamma, it's not complicated, very simple. And so see, meditation is always moving towards simplicity rather than towards complication. Being a personality is a complication. Well, my personality can be quite complicated, isn't it? We can all be complicated, sensitive people with all kinds of neuroses. So what is a neurosis anyway? When you say I'm neurotic, or somebody is neurotic. And these are complicated mental states we create. Usually, reactive behavior that we have these bodies with their energies. These are natural conditions. They're sensitive formations. So we have to live in a state of sensitivity. It's an energetic form. It's a sexual form. It has a form of survival, just basic survival as a creature. These are kind of primal energies that are just natural to this human form. The procreative one, survival one. Fear is a kind of primal emotion that we share with all creatures, animal realm. the animal realm is very much a fear-driven realm, survival of the fittest. And so these kind of primal energies are taken on as kind of personal conditions that we judge, so it's the sexual energies are seen as a kind of personal, we make it very personal, and becomes, in the West, in the modern times, we identify very strongly with sexuality as our self, as part of our personality, our being, and it becomes very complicated, making this natural energy of the body into some kind of personal, and evaluating, judging it in some way. You become neurotic. And then the same with anger and fear. Because the ideal is, we have an ideal of being the ideal monk or nun or human being is to be fearless, brave, strong, fearless, in control, not caught up in blinded by lust and anger. The ideal that we create in the mind, an ideal is a creation. It's not a human being. An ideal is not human. Like the Buddha Rupa, isn't it? It's an ideal. It looks as a human form, but it's not sensitive. It doesn't, it's made out of bronze. And it's beautiful, so we ideals are beautiful, not to dismiss that, but put them in their place. Know an ideal as an ideal rather than as letting your idealism intimidate you endlessly and making yourself feel not so good because you can't live up to such high-minded ideas. So in reflecting on the way it is, we're just instructing ourselves, informing ourselves of what it is to have a human form, a sensitive form, at this moment, in this place. There's nothing personal in it right now. It's not saying it's mine or it's good or bad, but it is like this. So then we create our personalities, and accordingly, to complicate life endlessly because of the experiences we have from birth to the present moment. We have a memory. We're affected by things, we have traumas and shocks in life, and that we interpret and translate always in highly personal terms. Because that's the way it seems. This is happening to me. This trauma is mine. These feelings, they're why do I have so much fear or lust or anger? And I shouldn't, there's something wrong with me, or it's your fault. It's my mother's father, my society, because I didn't get everything that I should have gotten when I was young. And so we kind of tend to go outward to blame conditions of the past. So we become increasingly more kind of complicated personalities. We're not just the simplicity of awareness anymore, but we create this complexity of identity with the five khandhas. So in awareness, then we're just noting the way it is, that the body is an energetic form, feels, there's consciousness, sensitivity. And what is it that is aware of this? Is it me, Sumedho, being aware of Sumedho? Or is it this awareness? Is it not, Sumedho is another creation. Isn't it? It's a word, Pali word, and we can think that and believe that I'm actually Ajahn Sumedho, but the awareness of that, it transcends. This awareness includes all of that. It's not judging or dismissing or denying or resisting, but it embraces, receives these conditions as they arise and cease in the present. When I encourage this trusting, this awareness, this is quite, it's difficult to express, because this is a kind of imminent act of attention and recognition that this awareness is what I can really trust, because it's not personal, it's not created. It's the aim of meditation is to recognize it, realize it, and then to develop that awareness, develop it as you recognize. It's not that you're never aware and you suddenly discover it through meditation. It's just where you don't recognize. Samsara, the word samsara, is the Pali word for the world, which is the creator, the artifices of thought and proliferation, the view that we have, the world that we create. And so the worldly values, worldly life, worldly habits are what are our reality. So we each live in our own world, really. Now we think we're living in the same world, but we're not. We create, our own world that we live in the sense of me as a separate person. And I think we're all living in the same, I assume we're all living in the same world, but sometimes, personally I'm quite surprised at the worlds that people live in. It's very different than the one I'm living in. Their fears and their attitudes and opinions and views and obsessions and how they see things is very different than the way I do on that conditioned level. So are we all living in the same world, or these separate worlds that we create? We can find common ground, but maybe that's just being a separate entity, isn't it? Each one of us is a separate physical entity, so and then the kind of memories, conditioning of our lives varies in all kinds of ways, culturally and in every other way. So, the world we create has its unique kind of personal quality to it. And yet we assume we're all in the same world. That's why in a community, sometimes it's frustrating, being a teacher and so forth. You think, why can't they see it like I do? Why don't they, the same place, the same world? But actually, when you really investigate, that's not true. We just assume we're in the same world. So in the terms of the word world, or loka, the Pali word is the loka, then this world is individual, that it's a creation. The perceptions that we create to experience life through on this personal level, cultural conditioning, generation is difficult for me to understand from my generation. The younger generation baffles me. Generation gap, they call it. No, but the world then is seeing that, taking for granted that we're on the same world, we recognize that the world that I create, how bright and good and happy and sunny it is, or dismal and depressed. The point is to free ourselves from these limitations of the worlds we create. So to return or remember, recognize this unifying position of awareness. Then we're one. It's a universal oneness, unity is the reality of awareness. And that unity, that universe contains all the worlds, so, we're just recognizing where the separation, the seeming and apparent separations and differences cease is in awareness. Sati sampajanya, right understanding, samadhi. So then this samadhi, sati panya, is as I said before, is not a critical faculty. So no matter, that's why the world you create, no matter how wonderful or horrible or right or wrong it is, these are criticisms, these are judgments that we do with our intellect. When the thought process is dualistic. So if you have right, you have wrong, good and bad, true and false, and things like this. This is and when you're thinking, you notice that it is a linear progression from one thought to the next. It's good to be good, bad to be bad, kind of logical. We should be good, we shouldn't be bad, is the cultural, moral conditioning. What's right is good, what's wrong is bad, and like that. So if we're in what we call a bad mood, then we're bad. the logic, it goes in from, if the mood is bad, then I must be, because it's mine, then I'm bad accordingly. And so this critical faculty is highly developed in modern life through education. So we it's easy for us and very natural for us to criticize and to see, to make judgments about others, about ourselves, about the world that we live in. And this is a function of the mind. This is it's thinking is a function not to be despised. It's a wonderful function we have, but how to use thinking rather than just be caught and enslaved to our thoughts and this artificial world that comes from that. So then the awakened attention, sati sampajanya, intuitive awareness, attention, brings us into the present, into this state of oneness, natural state of being, gives us perspective on the conditions that we're experiencing. And we can see their arising, ceasing. So this is the panya faculty, the discerning ability to recognize the way it is, to recognize sati sampajanya is like this. It's not like it's a created state that you can objectify. You just recognize it. It's like the space in this temple. It's not that it's ever absent because you don't notice it. It's just you may not ever notice because your attention's always drawn to the things, to the objects. So sati sampajanya is natural state. It's not, it's always like the space is always, it's not that you have to get it, find it in some way, or do something in order to create yourself into somebody who's mindful, but just trust yourself to recognize, realize it's this way. Now like with Buddha's teachings and the idea of practicing meditation, developing all these words, the sense of progress and doing something in order to get something. So these are assumptions that we easily create, that we've got to get something from our practice. So just notice this assumption: I'm somebody who's unenlightened and needs to practice in order to become enlightened, hopefully, in the future. So this is a creation, isn't it? This is a sense of me as I see myself as they are unenlightened personality with all kinds of hang-ups and emotional problems and memories of the past and guilt and remorse and hope and despair. And I'm looking to monastic life as a kind of refuge where I can get my act together and become, hopefully, get out of this neurotic mess into being an arahant, an enlightened one. So, this is, when I started meditation, this is, I did feel I was a kind of emotional wreck, and that I certainly needed to do something in order to, get out of this mess, this complicated trap, kind of sticky web that I didn't really understand it. I was just kind of stuck into it. But there was a kind of awareness, a kind of a intuitive sense that wasn't all that conscious, that kind of guided me or inclined me toward Buddhism, Buddhist practice. So then this illusion of me being this sticky web of neurotic habits and fears and desires, that one started out just trying to suppress them, get rid of them, control, because this is all I knew how to do as a person. Personality was based on that kind of activity, controlling and trying to, resist and create. So when the power of awareness, when I recognized what awareness really is, I began to see what I was doing, how even my meditation practice was operating from the realm of delusion. Now this is the kind of genius of the Buddha, where you have to start with suffering, the first noble truth, because that's what we're most easily recognizable and what we most kind of want to get away from, be free from suffering. But then by investigating this noble truth with awareness, satipanya, we see through, we begin to see how we create out of this ignorance these different kinds of sufferings that haunt us and follow us around like phantoms and ghosts. So it's trusting this awareness. I've said before, it's not special. It's not like that you're recognizing something absolutely fantastic, but it's ordinary, so it doesn't seem like anything in terms of your personality, which is based on extremities. The idea of identifying yourself, even thinking, "Oh, I'm just an ordinary guy," is still a creation, isn't it? Or I'm a special kind of person, or I'm a nobody, I'm not worth anything, I'm a worthless person. These are all creations, these are extremities based on views and opinions, identity with your memories and thoughts and ideas. So awareness then is the way out of this trap. In order to get off this sticky web is not to just struggle against it, but to embrace it, because that which is stuck is not self. That which is stuck, is rather a created self, an illusion of being stuck. When we're aware, then we have perspective on the sticky web and on this sense of being caught and trapped in these limitations. So it isn't a destruction of anything, or a denial or resistance, or creating something finer, a golden thread web maybe, but a transcending of it, because this awareness then is the reality of transcendence. And when I use the word transcendence, it doesn't mean, a kind of aloof distance, but changing the perspective from identity to these limitations to awareness of these conditions as for what they are. And so then this reflection on anicca, all conditions are impermanent. So trusting it, recognizing it, it's just this. And now when I say this, I'm with the sound of silence. This is the kind of sign or that which I easily recognize. Now I've trained myself over many years to really pay attention and rest in it. So the sound of silence to me is just a natural. It's natural. It's not created, and it's all the time. My attention to it can vary, but it's not a matter that it disappears because I'm not paying attention. It's just I'm paying attention to something else. But immediately, the more you develop this way of practice, then it's very spontaneous. It's not something that difficult once you recognize and trust it. Now, it's not to create something around sound of silence as if it were, some kind of attainment or, because one can project onto this, or, your own doubts, or maybe some people feel aversion to it. They're maybe your holy life is based more on kind of ethereal ideals of, loving, experience of blissful love as an ideal that you're aiming for. So the sound of silence can seem pretty barren, actually, when one is aiming for eternal love and, the more kind of inspired ideas that we can create, because it doesn't seem like very much. So it's easily overlooked, like space in the room. It doesn't. Why bother with it? Just this buzzing sound. So what? Is that what I'm here for? Just to sit and listen to this buzz all the time? The mind goes on and then one develops negative, not anything worth bothering with. What a disappointment. What a chip. Been 40 years as a monk. I end up with just a buzz in my ears. Now that's creating a negative reaction to it, isn't it? Because in one way it doesn't seem like very much or anything worthwhile. Because a lot of meditation, we can be practicing meditation with the desire for becoming something more ethereal experience that we imagine, something much more grand. And so the ordinariness of this can be quite disappointing. But yet, in taking on the reflection on the Four Noble Truths, it's the Buddha pointed to something that is not inspiring at all. The First Noble Truth is not an inspiring truth. It doesn't lift you up into the heights of bliss. A lot of people think it's depressing. Think Buddhism is a kind of pessimistic religion. It's not even a religion, it's kind of a dismal humanist philosophy about everything suffering. But pointing to dukkha as a noble truth then is encouraging that, because when we really look and admit and notice suffering in the present, there's awareness. It takes awareness to do that. This reflective capacity of just noticing this sense of dis-ease or anxiety or kind of pushiness of desire, and that we can be compulsive meditators. This sense of the way we even meditate can be a kind of compulsion to get something, to do something. So you by recognizing or reflecting on dukkha, you're opening. It's an opening because the awareness begin to recognize or realize awareness. You're actually using awareness. You may not realize it or recognize it yet, because the Third Noble Truth is the realization of cessation, of conditions ceasing. Everything, all conditioned phenomena ceases, and the cessation of conditions, the end of the world, the cessation of the world, or the world we create, the cessation of self, is peaceful, isn't it? It's very peaceful just to be here and mindful, be in the state of awareness, natural state. As you trust this more and more, then it sustains itself. It's not, because it's not your creation, you don't have to kind of keep boosting it up, and making it go. It's a natural state. The sound of silence is natural vibration. So you're resting in it. It carries you like a stream. So you just have to float in the stream, restful. And as you recognize that, these words recognize or realize, then it increases your trust in it. Your ability to trust it, or the saddha, in the Pali word saddha, is translated as faith or trust. And this is trust not in somebody's ideas or views or that. It's through your own insight. Through seeing it for yourself, bhajjatang, you've seen it, you're knowing it for yourself. It just believing in what I'm saying or what the Buddha said or anything else. It's you prove it. You can test it out. So then, like in Pacific, like sitting in like this temple here, it's my favorite place to meditate, actually, in the whole world. It's it has I find it's just a pleasure, a peaceful, enjoyable experience to sit and listen to the sound of silence, be present, and that gives me increasingly more confidence in this. Then to integrate that, and you can't live in the temple all the time. You go out and do things and whatnot, but the important thing is to begin to recognize this stillness, inner stillness, isn't it? When you recognize it, it has this unshakability. It doesn't wobble. It doesn't go up and down. It has this kind of continuity of flow that is peaceful. It's peaceful, still. Peace is like this, isn't it? When people, the peaceniks and my generation, when I was in university, they're called peaceniks. We're always saying, we want peace. Then we go on protest marches in Berkeley, against the Atomic Energy Commission, and their office was in Berkeley, California, and they walked by with signs saying, peace, peace. But when I was a student, I wasn't at all peaceful myself. I was not anything. Peace was merely an ideal, a concept that seemed nice, but I didn't have a clue what it meant. Really, it was a nice idea. I remember getting active in peace movements at that time, the early 60s in Berkeley. And we'd all talk about peace and complain about the American government and the Cold War and all the rest. And but I began to notice then how that, even though I was, great exponent of peace, I was not peaceful myself. Difficult to live with anybody, or, just so much unresolved feelings and fears and problems as a personality. So then I noticed in the peace movement, even though they're called peace movements, they were never very peaceful within themselves. A lot of internal quarreling, fighting, kinds of things going on that one couldn't conceive in any way as being peaceful. And yet everybody loved this idea of peace. I've even been invited in April to go give a talk on peace in Oslo. And interesting. Because peace and religions and so forth. So all religions, they talk about peace. And great idea. But what is it? What is the reality of peace, here and now? And so, for me then, the peace is this awareness, just resting, relaxing into this stillness and trusting. It's peace like this is unshakable peace. It's not a peace that's going to be obliterated by an attack or a war or anything else. To recognize the true nature of being is peaceful. This very nature is this. So I'm not just shouting, let's have peace anymore, but being peaceful within myself. This peace is a natural state of being. It's not imposed on just by suppressing the conflicts of the mind. It's recognizing this natural state of being in which the conflicts of the mind resolve themselves. And not me to spend my life endlessly trying to clean up all the conditions of my karma, my habits, by, trying to make them all right and beautiful and good. Because there's not enough time for that. It's an impossible task. But to get to the very source is the aim of Buddhist practice, Buddhist meditation. But then, on a personal level, peace can be quite boring. So you do have, if the human karma, one's karma, gets bored with it, actually, a little bit of excitement or sort of restlessness and that we still have to deal with our vipaka karma as it tends to appear in consciousness. But the more we trust in this stillness, recognize it, realize it, rest in it, trust it, then the problems around that arise, the karma that we have to experience, more and more we're aware of it and its subtleties and how we easily kind of get intimidated or taken over by quite subtle movements of thought or feeling. And the more you trust this awareness, this inner stillness, then the more you find you allow your vipaka karma that arises in the present, you're letting it go, you're letting it resolve itself. And then this is like developing the path, the Fourth Noble Truth. This is the way of, say, living within the human form, with the vipaka karma that arises in the present for each one of us, whatever that might be. And then allowing the sangha vehicle, monastic form, is like a conventional vehicle. It's that we use in order to live our lives as human individuals in this society. Skillful means, good moral basis, and also its relationship to the world, to the society, is one of compassion, loving kindness, peacefulness. So I encourage you today to, this is a rare opportunity, these winter retreats, here, because we have, for the, Sangha, we don't have anything else to do really. So, this kind of persistence and determination, because in our lives there's going to be all kinds of challenges and temptations arise. Just the way life is, our vipaka karma ripens, and we're suddenly confronted with all kinds of things that easily intimidate us or attract us or compel us to act in various ways. And that's why establishing this foundation, this basis for reflection, it gives us that kind of strength and confidence to deal with the crises and difficulties of the society we're living in and our own personal karmic habits. So it's if we don't really develop this foundation of awareness, then even the monastic form can't hold you. Because you go through periods of love-hate with monasticism. So you kind of I want to be a monk or a nun, and think inspired thoughts and that, and have all kinds of views about it and how, hopes for it. And then periods where you don't like it at all, can't stand it, and doubt it. But this basis of awareness then reflects that. The importance is this awareness, establishing, recognizing this point of awareness and developing it. Then how we personally react to the limitation, the restriction of monastic life, the tradition that we're using, and the reactions that we personally have toward it and towards people in it and so forth. And these are seen in from this reference point. We more and more do not make problems and create ourselves into rebels or critics. Or are we sycophants? We're not just saying you've got to believe that this is the only way and we're doing the right thing better than anyone else and become kind of a cult of sycophants. That's not it either. But it is a conventional form. It has its good points and not so good points, but we're not asking it to be perfect anymore. It's merely an expedient means and a vehicle to use that helps, can be quite, its aim is always towards this point of awareness. The Vinaya, the Dhamma teachings, they're all aimed at that, encouraging that kind of awareness. This awareness, this recognizing and cultivating the Eightfold Path.